Hello, this is Brandon, and today we're going to make one of my favorite teas. Actually, it is my favorite tea. It's Tieguanyin, also known in its English translation as Iron Goddess of Mercy. Now, this is a kind of a lighter oxidized oolong tea. It's a greener oolong, and it is it's from the Fujian province. And Iron Goddess of Mercy is its name from a bodhisattva. A lot of teas are named after different gods and goddesses and bodhisattvas from Chinese tradition. This particular being from a Buddhist tradition. We'll go ahead and start making the Tieguanyin. This is probably the most popular tea in China, and so I'm really excited to make it today. It's one of my favorites. So again, as usual, we're going to just want to warm up everything, just as you want to do with every time you make any tea, warm everything up. So that includes the gaiwan. I'm just going to quickly warm up the lid as well. Okay, just warm everything up. Go. Okay. Now with the Tieguanyin, you want to make sure that you use a little bit more leaf with this. I don't know if you can really tell, but the leaves are really, really tightly rolled into little balls. And so I'm using just a little bit more leaf than I would with some other teas. So we've probably got about a layer and a half or so of tea in here. You really want, they're going to expand a lot, and you want the gaiwan to be completely full of leaves by the time you're probably 3 or 4 infusions in. So of course, just like usual, we're going to do a rinse with the tea, and again, because those leaves are so tightly rolled, you really want a rinse to be able to get those leaves to unravel a bit so they can start extracting some of that flavor. All right. And again, if you take a chance to smell this, I mean, it's a floral tea. It smells, it has a lot of buttery notes to it. It's quite good, actually. So there's a little bit of that color there. We're going to go ahead and discard that just to keep everything warm. All right. Now I'll do another video later on the technique, just typical gaiwan technique, how to hold and how to pour, because it can be quite kind of intimidating, scary, and maybe a little dangerous sometimes when you're trying to handle hot water. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but just kind of basics as I'm walking through this. You want to make sure that you don't introduce your hot water to your tea too quickly, because you don't want to burn the leaves, especially with this. I mean, it's not a terribly delicate tea. As you can see there, the leaves are still pretty tightly together there. They need to unravel a bit more. So I don't want to burn the tea, so I want to make sure that I pour it very slowly and introduce the hot water to the tea in a slow manner there. So how I'm going to do that is just by picking a point on the gaiwan, on the edge of the gaiwan, and I'm going to start there so I'm not pouring it directly onto the leaves, and I'm going to pour in a circular motion. Okay, so that way it's cooling because it's hitting the side of the gaiwan rather than the leaves, and it's in a circular motion there. I also want to make sure that I don't pour the gaiwan completely to the top because as you can see here, maybe you can't see, but when I close the lid, the water kind of over pours, and it will cause the sides of the gaiwan to be too hot, and I can't pour it. So one way to do that is I create a little bit of a vacuum here, and then I just get rid of that extra water. Okay? And this is already ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and decant into my fairness cup. Now, one reason we call this or the reason we call this a fairness cup, is because in traditional Chinese tea, what you would do is there wouldn't necessarily be this extra pitcher here. What you would do is you would have multiple cups if you're preparing for different people, and you would pour back and forth and kind of do a continuous pour along each cup. And the point of that is that the water at the bottom of the gaiwan tends to be very bitter and concentrated because that's where the leaves tend to settle. And of course, that means that the water at the top is light and it's not, and it's very, it lacks flavor. And so one way to do that is to continuously pour, so that way it mixes the tea up. Or the easier way is to use a fairness cup, and they call it a fairness cup because it mixes the tea and everyone gets a quote-unquote fair tasting cup of tea. So you can go ahead and look at this color. It's a beautiful green color. It was probably only infusing for maybe five or 6 seconds or so, and I was talking too much, so it was actually a longer infusion than I had intended, but it's still going to have a great taste to it. So again, you can go ahead and look at these leaves. They're starting to open up a little bit. The gaiwan is maybe halfway full now. By the end of my infusions, it's going to be, I mean, barely any room for water in there, and that's really what you're looking for. So with the Tieguanyin, so it's got a nice kind of buttery taste to it. It's just a nice, refreshing, kind of relaxing tea, and it's a very popular one. So that's your Tieguanyin. If you're making it, remember, use a little bit more leaf. You want it to expand quite a bit. Don't introduce your water too quickly, because unlike the last tea that we made, the Big Red Robe, it's a lighter tea, and so it can burn a lot easier. And again, make sure you always rinse your tea, especially with the tightly rolled ones. You want to get them out. So in the future, again, we'll talk a little bit more about gaiwan technique and everything else, so when we get back to a more stable environment where I have everything with me. So until then, drink tea.